I knew my boyfriend was hiding something from me, but I never expected the reason to be that he was trying to save our relationship. For 3 weeks, he had been acting different. Not in the obvious way people usually imagine when someone is losing feelings. He still held my hand in public, still remembered how I liked my coffee, still kissed my forehead before leaving. That was what made it worse. Everything looked normal, but something felt missing. He stopped talking about the future. The apartment we used to joke about getting together someday suddenly became a topic he avoided. When I asked him what was wrong, he always smiled and said, "Nothing. I'm just tired." I wanted to believe him because I loved him, but I started noticing little things that didn't add up. He would leave the room to answer calls. He would close his laptop when I walked by. One night, I saw a message pop up on his phone while it was sitting on the table. It only said, "She still doesn't know." I didn't touch his phone. I didn't ask. I just stared at him across the room and wondered who she was. The worst part wasn't that I thought he was cheating. The worst part was that a tiny part of me was already preparing for him to leave. A few days later, I finally decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I asked him if he was happy with me anymore. He looked genuinely hurt. "Why would you ask that?" he said. I almost laughed because I wanted to say, "Because you've been acting like you're already saying goodbye." Instead, I just asked, "Are you keeping something from me?" He looked away. That 1 second told me everything. I grabbed my jacket and told him I needed space. He didn't stop me. That hurt more than I expected. I drove to my sister's house and cried harder than I wanted to admit. I convinced myself that if someone really loved you, they wouldn't make you feel this alone. The next morning, he showed up at my sister's door. He looked exhausted. He handed me an envelope and said, "Before you decide anything, please read this." I almost refused. I thought it was going to be some apology letter full of excuses. But inside was something I never expected. It was a lease agreement. For an apartment. The exact apartment we had talked about getting one day. I looked at him, confused. He sat down and told me the truth. He hadn't been pulling away because he wanted to leave. He had been secretly saving money for months because he wanted to surprise me by moving in together on our anniversary. He stopped talking about the future because he was afraid I would find out before he could make it happen. The calls weren't from another girl. They were from the landlord. The messages weren't what I thought. "She still doesn't know," was his friend reminding him that I didn't know about the surprise. I felt embarrassed, but I also felt angry. "You made me think you didn't love me anymore," I said. He looked down. "I know. I thought keeping a secret was better than ruining the surprise." Then he pulled out another envelope. This time I recognized the handwriting. It was mine. I opened it and realized it was a letter I had written him months earlier when we had our first serious fight. I had forgotten about it completely. In the letter, I told him that my biggest fear wasn't losing him. It was feeling like I was the only one fighting for us. He looked at me and said, "That's why I didn't want to tell you. I wanted to prove I was fighting for us." I didn't know whether to hug him or yell at him. So I did both. I cried into his shoulder and told him he was the sweetest idiot I had ever met. We moved into that apartment 2 months later. Everything was almost perfect. Almost. Because a year after that, while cleaning out an old drawer, I found the same envelope again. But this time, there was something inside that I had never seen before. A second note from him. It was dated the day before he came to my sister's house. I opened it expecting another romantic message. Instead, it said, "If she leaves after finding out the truth, I understand. But I need her to know I was never planning a future without her." I sat there holding that note for a long time because I finally understood something. The secret wasn't the apartment. The secret wasn't the surprise. The thing he had been hiding the entire time was how scared he was of losing me. And somehow, after all the confusion, that was the thing that made me love him even more.